All right. Hello once again, all. We'll be talking about your cover letter and resume assignments. You have chapter 15 from your textbook to support this. Has a lot of great examples as well as a lot of great advice on how to conduct a job search as well as how to write these job application materials. The only thing I want to point out real quick, well, you should have read through the assignment description by now, saying that you'll be writing two things for this assignment. Um, Looks like I still have chapter 14 jotted down from an older edition. It's chapter 15, which I do say up here. So sorry for that little mistake. It is indeed chapter 15. Um, okay, so the gist of this assignment um, is to help you prepare for life after college. Many of you will be graduating soon, and I want you to go on the job market with some basic documents, a cover letter and resume. You may already have some from another class or from a current job, and that's fantastic. I'm going to ask you to either update those, at least for the resume, and you'll be writing a cover letter from scratch. Um, as you can tell from the assignment description, the cover letter asks you to find a job from somewhere. It can be online, can be a local paper, whatever, but some type of job that you would apply for with your college degree, whatever it may be, whatever your field may be. So you're not really writing as yourself necessarily right now, but rather as you who is graduating, still have your cap and gown on, and you're getting ready to go out in the job market. Um, Once you select some type of ad for a job, then you'll have specific questions that you need to answer to with your experience. And that's what we're looking for here. So, as an example, I just found one sort of generic technical writing job from like Monster.com or Indeed or .com or something like this. Um, so you can see here's an ad that one of you might have found. It doesn't have to be a technical writing job that you're applying to. Whatever your field is, whatever type of job you would apply for, actually go ahead and find one that you would want and apply for it. But since this is a tech writing class, I just thought we would use sort of a default technical writer position. You can see this one happens to be on environmental health and safety. Now, what this assignment asks you to do is to actually answer to these things that they're looking for in your cover letter. You don't have to do that necessarily through resume. Your resume is usually a bit more generic um, than your cover letter. Your cover letter is definitely written for a specific audience. You would not send the same cover letter out to multiple jobs. You'll always be changing your cover letter slightly based upon the position that you're applying for, the company that you're applying to. Um, so you can see here, there are a number of bullet points. Each of these is sort of a job skill that they're looking for, and you would want to find a way to answer to these with your experience inside of your most likely 4-paragraph cover letter. If you've read through chapter 15, and you should have by now, you'll note that there's in the cover letter an introductory paragraph, usually an education paragraph, followed by a job work experience type of paragraph, and then a closing paragraph. So you've got basically those two middle paragraphs, and then kind of the first and last, but mainly the two middle paragraphs, education and work experience, to try to answer most of these things. Here's the bulk of what they're looking for. So when you read your own job ad, you'll need to prove in some way, if this were the job you're applying to, that you have written, edited, and proofread and published technical documents. You could at least mention our course, and maybe you had an internship or something like that in technical writing, and that you've written as many of these as possible. You know, when you're applying to jobs, you probably won't have done all of these things, and you certainly won't have done all of these bullet points, um, but you find a way to show that you've done as many of them as possible, or that you've done similar things to these. So it seems like you're in the ballpark and you're a candidate for this job. Um, you want to be honest. You don't want to go beyond your experience. You don't want to claim expertise in something or experience in something that you simply don't know about. Um, because during a job interview, that would certainly become apparent that you don't actually know as much as you said you know. So you may as well maintain honesty, and that'll make your life easier and not waste everybody's time, including your own. Otherwise, you can see that there's just a list of things that you would want to answer to. Your own job ad will have something like this, a list of bullet points. And what you need to do, and this is the trick of a cover letter, a successful cover letter, is you need to somehow integrate these into your education or work paragraphs. Um, Sometimes your education paragraph may have some work experience if it seems that's how you can talk about these things. Um, so the education and work paragraph breakdown may be a bit simple, right? You might have internship experience and it winds up in your education paragraph because you also have a lot of work experience or whatever it may be, right? So that education work paragraph breakdown is perhaps too simple, but it's an easy way to control the cover letter, which will only be a page. Usually 4 paragraphs is standard. And you don't want to really deviate from that too much because you become unreadable and it looks as if you don't understand a job search in general because typical cover letters are indeed 4 paragraphs. So it looks like you don't know the rules and you haven't studied up on this and how to do this thing. So make sure that your cover letters are actually 4 paragraphs. Every once in a while you might see 3 or 5 or something like that, but I'm going to recommend 4. Okay, so you'd want to go through here and prove that you've got all these things. You can see some of our courses done. Design, document, format, and coordinate the display of graphics and digital images. Well, our class has done something like that, right? So, and you probably have other classes that have done that. So if you were applying for this job, you have at least educational, project-based experience in doing these things, and you could make an argument um, that you can do these things, that you're ready to do them, not as a student, but as a professional. And that's an easy way to see the cover letter and the resume, but certainly the cover letter. You are arguing that you have done these things in some way. You're making the claims that you've done these things and then providing evidence through your educational experience, your special project experience in college, your internship experience, your summer jobs, service learning, whatever it may be. It could be volunteer experience, um, any special groups from campus or off campus. Any of those groups will perhaps give you these experiences. And so you're making an argument that you've done some form of these things. Um, so that's an easy way to think of this. Some of these other things you can see that you could take care of fairly quickly in either the first paragraph or again the educational paragraph. The technology skills that you have, you'd probably want to explain how you use them in some way, etc., etc. But these are the things you need to answer to. The question always comes up, what if I haven't done these things? Uh, Focus on the ones that you have. Uh, Try to give something similar to the things that you have not done, or simply say, I'm a quick study. I can probably learn these things, and I'm familiar with everything else on the list. And that would work pretty well. You probably don't want to ignore a bunch of these because it'll look like you didn't read this closely, or that you're hiding something, right? So you probably do need to address all of the things that the job is looking for in some way. So anyway, that's what the assignment asks you to do, is to find something like this and actually practice targeting a specific job with your real life work experience that you have right now from your education in any jobs. So that is what all of this is saying. If your resume is a bit more generic, that's okay. It can just capture your basic work experience. But I do want you to use something like this, mainly because I found in the past that students really struggle to write a good cover letter. Oftentimes it's just a dumping ground for all of the classes they've taken, things they're interested in, and their hopes and dreams. And what I want you to practice doing is turning your educational experience and any work experience you may have into an argument that you are already a professional and doing professional work, even if you are still in college. And so that is the thing that people miss the most. They just throw everything in the kitchen sink that they've done, but they don't actually answer to each of these specific bullet points, which you can think of as a question. This is the employer asking you, have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? It's your job to say, yes, I have, and to organize it nicely into a couple of paragraphs. All right. So let's do this. Let's take it from the top of chapter 15. Maybe we'll throw up an image here. Eventually we'll wind up here, which is your resume. So that's where we're headed. I've also put up this document, which essentially captures what the textbook says. And so this will be a nice checklist for you. One thing I have in the beginning here that you may want to revisit when you're writing your own cover letter is sort of a pre-writing heuristic. So maybe you've already written your cover letter for your D2L post, you do have to write a very, very rough draft. And you could use this. What do you like about your cover letter? What employer requirements seem least fulfilled in that initial version, and why do they seem least fulfilled? Did you forget to address them? Do you not have any work experience or educational experience? Why are they less fulfilled? And then what can you do to address that? What elements of letters opening or formatting are atypical, according to the examples in the book? Do a little compare-contrast. Anything that looks like you haven't studied the genre or don't know how to present yourself professionally. If you have errors or something like that, those can be problems as well. So try to stay out of the trash can, right? Some advice I got when I was going in the job market is that you want to be in the yes pile or the no pile. You don't want to be in the third pile, which is the maybe pile, because nobody's ever going to take you from the maybe pile. There's going to be enough people in the yes pile that they'll find the person they want. So this means that you can't just sort of go middle of the road and kind of give them a little bit of your experience, but rather you need to be a bit bold about your experience. Make sure you really talk about the things that you've done a lot of, that you've done well, and let those be sort of the things they notice most about your cover letter. That list that we had from the tech writing position has an awful lot of things. You want to answer all of them, but if there's one or two that you did a lot more of, let those come across strongly in your cover letter in hopes that they'll see you as a good fit in some way. And that will, what it does is differentiate you from everyone else who's applying for the job as well. They'll remember you because you have a few specific things that you do very, very well, which might get you in that yes pile, right? So that's some advice I got. Hopefully it's true. It seemed to work for me, I guess. All right. Other things you can do in terms of getting ready to pre-write and to invent some material. You need to reflect upon your own experience. All experiences are good experiences. We'll talk about the types of things that you can pull in a minute. But jot down 2 to 3 professional-like experiences you've had, either through college, volunteer experiences, internships, work experiences, that you feel are important, that either found their way into the letter or maybe didn't find their way into the letter, and figure out if there's some way that they actually help answer to what the job is looking for. So take a minute and reflect on some of the major things you've done at work. Don't think necessarily of just the major things that your discipline teaches you, that your classes have taught you. Sometimes there are other things that are important as well. Let's go down a bit so you can see what they are actually. What do employers want to see? Leadership and management potential, right? Collaboration. These are things that can come out of volunteer experience, that can come out of schooling, that can come out of special types of internships or something like that. Soft skills, communication skills, volunteerism. Usually employers like to see volunteerism because it shows that you actually would do what you love for free or for a little pay. Doesn't mean they won't pay you, but it means they don't want somebody that's just showing up 9 to 5, clocking in, clocking out. They want somebody who really does want to change the world through their field. So if volunteerism and some passion will certainly stand you in good stead in your letter. So it's worth mentioning those type of volunteer experiences because they provide experience, but also they show sort of the emotional connection that you have with this field that you've chosen to study in college and that you're now looking for work in. Resume, same thing. Leadership, management, experience, potential, collaboration, soft skills, responsibilities. Take sort of that job that you had at a restaurant for the summer. If you had keys, if you handled money, at least those are some responsibilities. So if you don't have anything better to list, at least you now have something to list. But don't just say, I talked to customers. Say, I worked with the public and I handled money. Now it seems like you're a more responsible person. And those are things that transfer to other jobs, right? Same thing with leadership and management experience. So if you had a job where you were in charge of 30 kids at summer camp, well, you're a leader, right? You know how to organize people. So maybe that's important when you're applying for a job at a bank or as a technical writer or whatever it might be. So those jobs that don't seem to have a lot of transfer into professional jobs, that, like I said, that sort of summer camp thing that you ran or something like that actually can have transfer, but it's not as immediate as you might think it is. Rather look to these types of people skills, collaboration, leadership, working or dealing with the public, oral and written communication, etc., etc. Those are also very important things to try to work into um, your resume and cover letter, so that you can sort of make a mountain of what seems to be a molehill, so to speak, from your summer job experience and educational experience. Okay, so let's go to the resume here. If we just look through your textbook quickly, 391, if you're working from the ninth edition, has this really great breakdown of the drafting process, revising and editing, how to think of information. Although this cover letter advice document that I have on screen should help you invent information too, but really you have to go through and think of everything that you've done, and imagine what employers are looking for, both from my advice in this document and then from the job ad itself. All right, so the rest of your book just has ways to look for a job. We're going to fast forward to 398, where you can start to see some examples. Maybe we'll look at 396 briefly. One thing, I guess if there's two mistakes I see in the resume typically, it's a lack of parallelism in terms of the mechanics of the letter. We can look that everything is parallel. If we take a look at page 396, both the writing will be parallel, but also sort of the design, so to speak, the indentations, the hierarchy, the headings, those type of things. And we see that on 396 in the brief examples. Some indentations will help make this readable because you have a hierarchy set up that way. So make sure that you have a decent hierarchy. Your book has good examples of sort of a default look for this piece. And the other thing I see that has to do with content, again, is undervaluing experience. Just using the cover letter and resume as a dumping ground for random things that you've done, rather than thinking about what employers are looking for or what the job ad says specifically they're looking for. Okay, so 398, let's take a look. I believe we have it right here. So this may be a little bit dark, apologies, but I wanted to at least get this up on the screen so we can take a look at what's going on here. Okay, so this example is actually from page 410. So as we look through the book, 398, you have your first good example. Take a look. You can see the parallelism here. The book has a nice breakdown of this. I'm going to move through it quickly. You can see a lot of resumes have the education section. There's a brief objective to open so that people know what type of job you're applying for. It might be a specific job you're applying to. Maybe you're just blindly sending out your resume. You certainly can do that. And you definitely want to include an objective then as well, so they still know what type of work they should file you under if they're going to keep your resume. The education section, usually short and sweet. You can see you want to list your degree. As you finish college, you have a good example here on page 398, the expected date of graduation, important classes or skills or something like that. We see that on page 398, and we see the same here on page 410. And then you have both on page 398 and here on 410 reverse chronology. So your present job moving backwards to your past jobs, right? The idea being that you probably have more experience and are more advanced in your current jobs. Notice that it's parallel. You've got verbs launching everything, analyze, assist, managed, etc., etc. Just notice it's a mix of sort of the technical skill-based things that this person has done, molecular data in this case, but also in the past, maybe the jobs were different. We won't say less important, we'll just say different. This one is managed a 12-person office. So this one focuses on the technical stuff, probably from their degree, it would appear. This one is still an important job, but it shows people skills, right? Shows the size of the company, a $1.2 million company, so probably a pretty large company in some ways, and the other sort of payroll skills that they have. So again, this doesn't seem like a job in their field, but they found a way to make it important and to teach a potential employer something about themselves and the variety of experiences that they have and the things they can do beyond their technical skills. Other than that, notice it's parallel. Notice the nice format. You've got the bars breaking it down here. If you take a look at the page 398, the layout is still good. It uses white space, not these bars to break things up. It uses bullet points. This one has not. Either is good. Doesn't really matter too much, but you'll notice reverse chronology is pretty good. The question always comes up in class when I've done this in the past: what if reverse chronology doesn't work very good and I want to skip around through different jobs? Because 2 years ago I had a really interesting internship, and that's over now, and now I'm just sort of working a weekend job again. You don't have to do reverse chronology. You can do sort of most relevant job to, I guess you could say, least relevant. You only have to have probably 2 to 4 jobs. That's all you can really squeeze in on something like this anyway. So you can put the important ones, put the dates down, and that's okay too. People will see that you are listing your most relevant work experiences to the job that you're applying for. And your book has more to say about that, so please do take a look. Pages 398 through 410, where you have a lot of good info on all of this. 400, you're really getting a really great summary of what I've said in the bullet points. State only the goals or duties explicitly mentioned for the job. Focus on the reader's needs. Sometimes people use jargon or vocabulary or explain the job as if they know what it is and somebody else who works there knows what it is, but a potential employer doesn't know what that is. That's why it's good to either explain the technical stuff that you've done or simply to run it through these types of things that I've given you as advice for a cover letter. The leadership, the collaboration, the soft skills, etc., etc. And you can see that's what this person here has done too, right? So 400 has good advice, but it's all about the reader. If the person who wants to hire you can't understand how your experience translates into you being a great employee, a great hire for their company, they're clearly not going to hire you, right? So you have to be familiar with the organization that you're applying to. And in the cover letter, you actually want to express that and capture that in some way. In the resume, it just comes across in the type of information you give and the way you explain your work experience. All right, so you have nice checklists for the resume. So I'm just going to leave it at that. That should help you invent material. You've got a nice list of verbs on page 402. You've got the gaps in your employment history on 403 and some different ways to deal with that. Several positions with the same employer, etc., etc. So you've got some good examples in here. Interests and activities on page 404. As I said, those can be important because they show you're a certain type of person, what you're passionate about, and that you're willing to do things for no pay just because you care. Right? And so this is usually impressive to employers and ranks pretty high on their list of things that they look for. So try to find a way to squeeze that into your resume. Maybe it pops up in your cover letter, especially if you can answer to an employer's need with it. References, the job usually tells you how they want references. You can have it, be available upon demand. Maybe they want them actually in the letter. So you'll have to look at what the job is asking for. Take a look at other elements that are worth putting in. If you have these second languages, computer skills, those types of things can be important too. All right, electronic resumes usually have sort of jargony keywords because what they do is they have computers that scan every resume that they have on file for certain keywords. The resumes that have the most keywords pop up, and those are the ones that get looked at. So enough said on that. They look a little bit different. Usually they're more left aligned. We'll take a look at page 410 here again, and just look at those examples. You have a nice rhetorical breakdown in the book. I don't think I have too much more to say about that. So one thing you want to do is do the compare contrast on pages 410 and 411. You see we've got the copy of the chronological here. Page 411, I did not make a copy of this, but you can see there are some slight changes towards a skill-based. You can see there's just less description of the position, which opens up the ability to put in more more information, but in a condensed form. And so you may need to do that again if you're trying to answer to a lot of job needs in your resume, or if you're sending out a blind resume to everyone and anyone. It's just your generic resume. You want to try to capture everything that you've done. So maybe that would be a good reason to send out a skills-based resume as well. Okay, so just take a look at those. I trust that you can get everything you need out of this. In terms of the resume, I'm not looking for anything specific. It could be skills-based, it could be chronological, whatever you think is best for this assignment for targeting a specific job, but also one that will be worth keeping when you go on the job market yourself in a few years or sooner. Okay, moving forward, last thing on page 415, preparing a scannable resume. Use that checklist. These checklists and all the things I've been talking about are what I'll be looking for when I grade these and giving you some advice and feedback. And this is a useful thing to work on, because again, you'll be sending out many of these. When I went on the job market, I think I sent out, if I remember right, 88 applications for various teaching positions. And I got a 10% rate of return for interviews, and that was seen as spectacular. Um, so you can see that it takes a while to get a good job. So you'll be writing these a lot, so you might as well get good at it. Okay, so switching to the cover letter, which is usually targeted more toward the job ad. You can see here, I'll pull this example up for you. So this is the example from page 421, a pretty strong example. But we also have page 419 from the book, and this will be worth looking at too, just for some examples. So take a look through. You've got a nice breakdown of the introductory cover letter. You've got good examples. This really doesn't require a lot of creativity. Instead, what I would do is simply look at all the different things that the introductory paragraph does. It's got a nice bullet pointed list. If you could do these things, you've got a little room for movement, but not too much. On page 418, they've got examples. You'll be doing the first one for this, response to a job ad. In the future, maybe you've got unsolicited, etc., etc. They've got unsolicited personal contacts, I would like to mention. From what I've read, up to 50% of all jobs come not from applying blindly to a job or from looking online, but rather through social networking, personal networking, talking to your friends, people that you know, friends of your parents, acquaintances, whatever it may be, and just letting everybody know that you're looking for a job, a certain type of job. And it seems that that is actually a fantastic way to get hired in this day and age of social networking and media. So keep that in mind. However, for our assignment, we'll be doing response to a job ad. So take a look at that. You should feel similar as you write your introductory paragraph. Usually you follow up with the education paragraph, especially if you don't have a lot of work experience. So the basic questions are there if you look through your book on page 418. But what aspects of your education most directly fit the job requirements? This could be coursework that you take in. It could be sort of labs, so to speak, applied projects that you worked on. Our class would be a great example. If a job asked for some sort of design applications, well, you've done some things in our class. You've made a set of instructions. You've made a map of campus with sort of the purposes of marketing and instruction, moving people around campus, right? So you do have some projects that you could talk about that makes it look like you've got, your feet wet. You've got something in the game, right? So take a look at page 418 to give you a good start. Let's take a look at page 419 here so we can see what this looks like when you actually turn it into a paragraph. Actually, sorry, I've gotten ahead of myself. Let's look up here, not at the bottom. So you can see example 2 opens up with just a description of the courses. That mentions the degree, right? Go sentence by sentence here. Second sentence, substantial client contact, so that's interpersonal skills, the soft skills that employers look for, being covered in the second sentence. I believe that my work in marketing in particular would be of special value. So that is sort of an argument for oneself or drawing attention to maybe a specific aspect of what the job was asking for in making sure that the reader does not miss that type of experience. Moving on from there, you've got an advanced marketing seminar. I used FrameMaker, right, so mentioning the technology. But right after that, you get almost what functions as a story or a narrative in some ways. And that's often the way that I refer to this. I used FrameMaker to produce a 20-page sales brochure describing the various kinds of building structures for sale by Oppenheimer Properties. This is an important thing to provide, this type of detail, because it's evidence for the claim, but it also sounds an awful lot like something that you would do at a job, right? Something that you would do for a living. So it shows that your educational experience really is parallel to the type of professional experience that this company is looking for. So despite the fact that you might be fresh out of your education, you've already been doing the things that are required for a job. So it's not just academic exercises, but rather pre-professional experience. So you're making an argument for yourself, and it's that type of detail that I'll be looking for in both paragraph 2 and paragraph 3 of your cover letter. So you want to have a bit of those that show what you've done in some way. And again, that can come from internships, special projects in school, volunteer experiences, whatever it may be. If we take a look at example 3, you'll again want to go through and do a sentence-by-sentence breakdown and show how they're capturing the types of courses that they took, probably the soft skills we can expect to appear in there, talking with clients, the public, etc., and then some type of special project that is probably still in use in some way. And so if we look through, we see that this one has meeting with chief psychologist at Western Regional Hospital. So you get soft skills, right? Who invited me to design clothing for people with disabilities. This is, again, a special project, something that sounds an awful lot like the working world, even though this is still happening in school, right? And in fact, we learned that they are being tested at the hospital. So it looks like this is something that's paying off. And so again, that looks like somebody that's ready to go, ready to enter the workforce. But it's only because of this story, so to speak, this short anecdote, that they can make their claim to be ready for the working world. So turn your experience, educational or otherwise, into something that makes you look like you're ready to go. The employment paragraph, you're going to talk about your jobs, and really it's similar to the educational paragraph. You're just containing different types of information. But again, if you were to go through sentence by sentence, let's say example 1 here, we're going to see the same thing. So they're talking about their summer jobs. They've worked at this Bodega Incorporation, designing and planning industrial complexes. Clearly that would relate to whatever the job is looking for. They must be looking at a job that does something similar. Began as an assistant in the drafting room. The second summer they moved up. Now they're accompanying a civil engineer on field inspections. So they're in the office. They know that. They know how to work in the field. So they're making claims for themselves about the variety of things that they can do, the variety of environments they can work in, based upon their various summer experiences. So great evidence for their claim, and it's sort of showing, not telling in some ways, if you want to think of it that way, what their experience is. We also get to close down this example, the technology squeezed into the last sentence, and the size of the facility as well, to show that they can work in a big facility. So that's a pretty decent job. A lot of things in one paragraph, right? If you were to look at example 2 on this page, you would see the same thing. So you should be going through sentence by sentence, clause by clause, new information, right? New experiences relevant to the job lists or to those basic things that all employers look for in each of your paragraphs. That's what I'll be looking for, and that's how I'll be providing feedback to you. And of course, I want you to include a copy of the job ad with your rough drafts. You can copy and paste it onto D2L or whatever. I'll be looking at the bullet points from your job ad and making sure that you're answering these in your paragraphs. So these paragraphs, the educational and the work experience paragraphs, are sort of the meat of your cover letter. You've got 2 brief paragraphs to teach me everything about yourself and make me, the person who might hire you, see that you are indeed ready to enter the working world. Okay, so here's the example from page 421. Another great example of what this looks like when you put all these pieces together, right? Writing in response to the advertisement, letting them know where it comes from, the position mentioned right away, and then briefly with the rest of the paragraph, sort of a broad argument for all the different experiences, educational and work experiences that one may have, so that they want to keep on reading, right? One thing you don't want to do here, a lot of students in the past have tended to say, it has always been my dream to be an astronaut or a technical writer or a teacher or whatever. Don't tell me your hopes and dreams. Don't tell your employer their hopes and dreams. Instead, show them that you are ready to be hired, that you are already doing the things that they are looking for. So if they don't have to train you, your hopes and dreams don't really tell them much. Everybody has hopes and dreams. Your hopes and dreams aren't all that different or special compared to everyone else's who would also be applying for the job. So your hopes and dreams don't make you unique. What makes you unique is your experience and the ability to convey that in writing to the potential employer. Okay. One way to think of these 2 paragraphs, the education and work experience, is that each sentence is probably answering a bullet point from the job ad. So it looks like this job ad likely wanted people with a strong background in computer hardware, and you can see that they're actually probably repeating the terminology from the job ad in the sentences here, so that the reader who may be hiring them can see exactly how this person's experience is answering to the job ad. You might as well be that signposted when you write these things. So digital and computer applications, so maybe those were both asked for in the job ad, or otherwise this person has simply said, I'm going to teach this person that I have both, right? So you can see each of these sentences as answering a job need that the employer listed, right? So take a look at this. It's really no different than what we went over, so I won't belabor it, but do analyze it sentence by sentence, clause by clause, as well as the other examples to see how all information is new information, answering the questions. Note that you usually reference your resume. There are things in the resume, more general things that you can't fit in here. You can see your cover letter as sort of your greatest hits, so to speak, and drawing on the major things that would make you qualified for the job, right? So maybe you can't teach soft skills as much in here, so you leave that up to the resume or something like that. Otherwise, make sure you tell them where to find you. So it's important to have all of this stuff. If they can't contact you afterwards, you will not get a job. So make sure that you have email addresses, phone numbers, all that good stuff. If you just continue to move through the chapter, you have some nice checklists throughout the piece. You also have other checklists preparing for a job interview, follow-up letters, etc., etc. So the last thing we'll look at is, I've put this on D2L as well. That is not it. That is the advice. Take a look at that. I'll be using that for feedback. Here's a cover letter example from a past student. So take a look at this, and what we'll do is have you open this up, I think, and you can pause the lecture for a moment and then sort of judge this and see how strong you think this is. What is it doing well, and perhaps what things has it missed according to Chapter 15 of our textbook and the things I've talked about so far. So go ahead and pause at this point, give this a read, and see if there's anything you'd like to know more about, anything that's undervalued, or anything else that you might notice that is less than perfect in this job cover letter. So, now that you've read it and taken a look, you might have noticed, it starts out pretty well, I'd suggest. We know what the job is, a basic breakdown of work experience. We don't learn about the degree here, so that could be seen as absent. You probably want to teach people more about what the college degree is, if it's relevant to this. Turns out this person was actually an earth science major, which would be highly relevant to being a rec program coordinator, right? So it's too bad they left out their education here. So the meat of a cover letter, as we know, is the second and third paragraph, the education and work paragraphs typically. The education paragraph, you might notice, just looks kind of small, right? So it seems underdeveloped in some ways. So we want to go through. Usually you would expect to see education, something related to the degree, some type of special project that came out of the degree, hopefully soft skills, technical things, since this is sort of earth science or management, so we can see leadership in here, and anything else that education could provide. Notice what this paragraph essentially is a list, but there's not that sort of narrative, that anecdote, that snapshot of their experience. Instead, they say basic computer programs, but we don't know what ones, so that's a problem. So what computer programs? Take a moment and tell me, right? Developing and maintaining outdoor programs to technical writing. That's just confusing. It's like a writing error. It's like they're maintaining outdoor programs technical writing, which is not what they mean. So what programs were developed and maintained while at Winona? If this person had classes where they learned how to do these things theoretically, that would be worth mentioning. If they actually did these things while at Winona through some sort of internship or collaborative programming in a class or something like that, that would be a great thing to bring up and turn into a small narrative that would go inside of this paragraph. Something along the lines of, while at Winona State, I participated in some type of program that taught environmental recreation skills to local 5th grade students, or something like that. And the technical writing too, we really don't know what types of things this person wrote, so why not include a few examples or just mention the course and what it did for those types of things. So we get another list of things, but again, child advocacy studies, great. So what types of things is this person interested in? What do they hope to do? Why is this training a good fit for this job? So we see this person not really making an argument for themselves, but rather just listing really basic general things that they've done. So I wouldn't suggest anything that looks like this. So again, what did you learn from these? What applies? And specifically, when you're turning this into information, what did the job ad say that it needs? And then turn each of these into an answer to the job ad's bullet points, the things that the job requires and is looking for. So this is definitely a case of underwriting. You wouldn't want to do that in your own, particularly when this class is over and you're trying to get a job. This one looks longer, maybe it's a bit more successful. So let's take a look. So we have something that's closer to what we're looking for. I was able to apply my knowledge of programming and communication to the field of recreation programming. Okay, so I utilize skills to adjust, maintain, and better these programs. If you're reading this like I'm reading it, I still don't know how they're adjusted, maintained, or bettered. So I really don't see this person in action. What did they do? What types of problem did they solve? How did they increase programming? Give me an example of what one did, right? Give me an example of what you did. And we really, again, don't see that here. This is almost like a list again, kind of like the first paragraph. It's closer to what we're looking for, but again, without details. And it's those specific details that allow you to look like you're already doing professional level work. So again, this is a great place to just mention the type of programming. You know, I implemented a rock climbing program for 5th graders, as well as, you know, helped 8th graders learn how to hike to build their self-esteem. Whatever, I don't know. Maybe it's a summer camp program. Who knows what it is, but we don't see it. And so in that way, there's no ability for the reader of this to see how this might transfer into the actual job this person is applying for. So again, kind of a loss here, unfortunately. So this, I'm going to suggest, is not a successful cover letter and probably wouldn't get you a job, most likely. So that's a good example of what not to do. The basics are there, but far too general and missing what really is probably the thing that will get you noticed and make you memorable, make you unique. The specific thing that you did that nobody else in the pile has done, that special project from your education or work experience, whatever it may be. So go ahead and think of what that is, reflect on that from your own life experience, and make sure that you build it into this. Look back at the good examples and how they do it, and every sentence, remember, teaches you something about what that job is looking for. So do that, and I think you'll be good. I think I've talked long enough and said the same things over and over plenty of times. So get busy, write a good cover letter, write a good resume. I will talk to you soon.